It wasn't very close. It was about, say, 2.5 kilometers that we heard a thud while we were staying in the hotel, and I could see the smoke rising. And I felt, you can escape all you want. One day you might be there, right under it. And it was a very scary experience. I think I didn't sleep that night. Also because...
What was the last thought? Even though you said that you couldn't sleep that night, but you might have dozed off by any chance. So what was the last thought before you dozed off that night?
हम कतार में हैं. I'll tell you the exact words.
Hi, Mr. Sheeraz. Welcome to Between the Lines, and thank you for doing this with us.
Thank you so much, Shweta.
Well, it's a pleasure. And since you're a typical Delhi ka Londa, been born and brought up here, and you have lived 18 good years in Saudi.
Right.
So, but even after all of this, you still love Delhi like anything, as far as I know, as per the conversation. So, what brings you back to the city? Why Delhi? Why do you love it so much?
Having been raised here and haven't had all my experiences from childhood till I started working in Delhi. Yes, that's why. Secondly, I am a big believer of the fact that you talk about anything, the perspective is always history. And Delhi is probably one of the only cities in India which has a very rich historical perspective to everything, being the capital of various dynasties. Then Britishers, when they came, they shifted their capital from Kolkata to, at that time it was Calcutta to Delhi. So yeah, very privileged to have been raised in this city. And since my first love in Delhi has always been food, Delhi, I would say, is the food capital of India.
That brings me to the question that, since, like you said, you're a typical Delhi ka Londa, and food is one thing which brings you back here. We can maybe have a quick rapid fire over here. So, chole bhature ya moolchand ke parathe?
Moolchand ke parathe.
Alright. Jama Masjid ka butter chicken ya Qureshi ki kebab?
Qureshi kebabs. Best butter chicken is in Gulati's at Pandara Road.
I am going to try that. Dolma auntie ke momos ya Lajpat wale Ram Laddu?
Lajpat wale Ram Laddu, purely because of my mother's innumerable trips to Lajpat Nagar and our family moments there.
Wow. Raju ke choor choor naan ya Jain chawal wale?
Raju ke choor choor naan.
Alright, I'll go for Jain chawal wale do. Sudama ki chai ya Tom uncle ki Maggi?
Tom uncle ki Maggi.
You are a typical Delhi University student. That pretty much says it. So, Mr. Sheeraz, as per our conversations earlier, you mentioned you're half Punjabi and half from Lucknow. Like your dad is a Punjabi and your mom is from Lucknow. Koi particular incident wherein, people said ki yaar, tere andar Punjabi khoon na ubal ke matlab, any particular incident you would like to talk about?
Yeah, so till I was in my early teens, I always, we were going back to Lucknow because Papa ki side to India mein hai hi nahi. And I remember that I had trained myself very much into the Lucknowi adab and tehzeeb. It was, I think, I was 14 or 15. We were going for a marriage party from Lucknow to some village. And those were the days when Maruti 800 had just been launched. And I remember the Bharat bus was going. I was there in it. And suddenly this car zipped past the bus. He was very upset that the bus driver didn't give him the side. And he stopped the car in the middle of the road and he started bashing up the driver. So I remember I jumped from the side of the bus from the window and I started, I think I smashed the window seal of the car and I took out the key. Us waqt tak all the people from the bus came out. And when everyone got organized and we started going again in the bus, my grandfather said, ये देखो ये है पंजाबी खून ना करने से पहले सोचता है ना करने के बाद. I think it consciously made me realize that, I have Punjabi blood in me. And I think it's only grown from there.
You truly stood up to that image,
Yeah.
All right. So, you've lived in Saudi for 18 years. How will you compare the law and order over there with India?
I think it's like night and day, or if I could even exaggerate it further, there is hardly any law and order problem. And that's also because there is a lot of capital punishment rules there, which are very severe and people refrain. Secondly, there is no poverty like India. People get to have 3 meals a day.
Oh.
So that's another difference in society. And just to give you an example, my one of my very good friends' wife, Neha, she tells me that she has been living in Saudi for almost 15 years now, and she feels safer in Saudi than in India. So even on women's security, I would say Saudi is much, much better than India.
Do you also believe it has something to do with how we raise our kids?
Absolutely. In India, I think the value system in theory is great. But when it comes to practicing it, we've seen the older generations the preference for a male child and how he's pampered. And for example, if there is enough budget in the house to make one of the children a doctor or an engineer, and there's a boy and a girl, the preference is given to a boy. So this discrimination against women starts very early. It is more a mental game. And then, at a later stage, it turns to a physical game also.
I mean, that's very true. I mean, in a family, if there is one girl and one boy, the way they are raised, they are very differently raised. Despite similar education being given to them, the values which are being passed on to women would be like, you have to get married, to build your family separately. Whereas when it comes to a guy, it's pretty much different. I mean, you have to get married and bring a woman home. No, so I mean, it does, create a lot of difference how you're raising your kids. I mean, are you actually giving that equality, or is it just on papers?
So I have a very interesting story on this, which is my own story, which is that, I've seen that when women come into our family, their surname is changed.
Correct.
So my mother is Tehseen Asad, Tehseen Zaidi, and then she became Tehseen Asad Shah. So I'm Sheeraz Shah. My wife's name is Zeba Zaidi. And we've been married for 18 years and her name is still Zeba Zaidi. I didn't change her name. Also, she insisted. I said, no way. And I remember initially when we used to go to a hotel or something, we used to have a problem. Who's this girl? Who's this woman with you? So, because the surnames are different.
Right.
But why should her surname change? And I've maintained that.
That's true. I think if everybody, I mean, if parents, especially, I think if the women in general, because as mothers, they need to somewhere stop discriminating from one woman to another woman. It should be like, we should actually raise them equally, Anyway, that brings me to my next question. You mentioned you'll be soon migrating to Canada or maybe any of the countries. So why don't you wish to come back to your native land, your home?
So it's a very natural progression for us Indians and people from the Asian subcontinent to look at Middle East as a very viable green pasture, and from there they move on to America or Canada. In my case, it's not so. I'm very desi at heart, and I always wanted to come back to India and settle down, more so for emotional reasons, and then build a future in India. But I think I've had that experience. I tried, and there were a lot of factors that went against it. COVID compounded it. I had a big financial loss as well. And that's the reason why I've taken this decision. So what you're saying is absolutely correct. I have actually tried it.
So don't you think it's your responsibility to maybe come back and give it to your country instead of settling down somewhere else?
True. It's something that my wife believes in. And another problem that I face now, which is just more than me, because I've got extensions of me now, which are my children. And my kids have been brought up in a very Western way. And we have tried to settle them in India. They like some of the things that happen here. But basically, they are very Americanized in their thinking. And I know for sure my elder son is going next year to the US to study. And it's very unlikely that he will come back. So I think as a father or even as a couple, we would like to be somewhere closer to our children. Because हम लोग के लिए तो बच्चे सब कुछ हैं.
But then how about you being, how will you stay closer to your father in that case?
What I've done is over the last so many years I've been in Saudi, usually families come back once in a year to parents. I've done that in numerous times. And my father has very clearly told me that he's not up for going to US or any. So it is a predicament. It is a dilemma in my mind. And I agree with you that it will be very tough taking that decision. But I am, you can say, more or less caught between, my extended family and my own family.
And don't you think as they're aging, like I said, it's somewhere, or maybe this is how we Indians are being raised, that you are responsible for this. You have to cater to your parents, to your, to your country. So, I mean, how do you think you'll manage all of that? Or is it going to be you settling down there, your parents being you?
So I've been not a very normal person when it comes to staying at places. I started off in Munnar in Kerala, where I learnt the local language in 5 years, and nobody thought Delhi ka Londa will go and stay in Kerala. Kerala almost seemed to be another country to me, because what happens when you go to a country, to a state of India, and people don't even understand your language? And from there, I went to Saudi, which nobody ever thought of. And from there, I located to Guwahati. And so, yeah, my ways are very unexpected. So what I see when I go to a new place is that how is it going to enrich me? How is it going to benefit me? And if I find those ingredients in a new place, I don't bother how secluded the place is, how lonely it can get. And I think these kind of decisions are good for me. But when it comes to you taking the family with you, I think that's a very selfish decision, because you're only concerned about yourself. I think I have learned from my mistake in the case of moving to Saudi earlier, because my wife doesn't come from a very orthodox Muslim background, and when we went to Saudi, it was there was a parda system there. Women couldn't go out of the house, and she found herself not at peace. So that's a great sacrifice she made. Now the Saudis so liberalized, and you can move around.
Correct.
She tells me that at that time I didn't share it with you, but I had quite a pretty horrid time, surviving in that kind of a society. So I think I'm more careful now in terms of selection. So if I go to Canada or if I go to any place, I would probably research it. I would probably take 10 opinions of people who settle there. My wife's opinion would be the foremost, followed by my kids, and I'd probably be last in terms of taking the decision.
Is it like you have suppressed your emotions towards your parents? Because this is the age where you should probably be with them, since as they age, that's the time where as kids, it's our responsibility to stay with them, or maybe the mindset, that's how it is. So have you suppressed your emotions towards them?
No, I've accepted.
Or are you planning something like the old age homes? Are you fascinated towards that?
Yeah, I'm a great believer of joint family system, because the kind of values it instilled in you when elders were around you. Yeah, it may have been a little claustrophobic for certain people because they had to adhere to a social norm, but I think it brought out the best in people, and that's what this book also talks about in a way, that going away from parents has its consequences. While in the metro India we move towards more nuclear form of living, we have really lost an important leg of our life, which is our parents who've been left behind. I would say I am also a typical casualty of that, because my parents always said, go where there are possibilities. And since we were three brothers, even now the youngest is staying with my parents. So in that way, they are not deprived of children. Yes, they may be deprived of seeing them every day. Like me and my middle brother Salman, we don't get to see them every day. But my youngest one, he stays with them. He's married. So he's giving that support right now to my parents. And we'll do alternate between the three of us to make sure they're never left alone.
He's a fortunate father for sure. You talked about your kids, having this Americanized thing, and they're being fascinated towards the Western culture. Is it something like, in the move towards being progressive, or maybe, in this entire thing of getting westernized, somewhere we are forgetting our own roots?
Somewhere down the line.
I mean, people over there, they're accepting Krishna, they're practicing, they're coming ISKCON. I mean, I practice it, and I see, a lot of, foreigners being there in Vrindavan, a lot of things. No? So is it something like we are leaving our legacy, our roots, and are heading very fast towards this Western culture, are very fascinated by it, whereas they are adapting ours?
So I think from the time of Annie Besant till now, it's a very balancing act that has happened. We may see Osho going there and doing something, so that was Osho leaving India. And we see similarly a lot of medical or religious tourism coming towards India and getting fascinated with ISKCON. This has happened for ages. It's not new. So this has been going on and it will continue. But we cannot take that in isolation and generalize it. I think my child getting excited and fascinated with America is to a large extent because of me. Uh, I have always been a great critic of America in terms of what they've done politically, but you got to give it to them. They have led the world order. You talk about Amazon, you talk about Google. Why is it that all the innovation comes from America? Why is it that that society
But you're
is
forgetting people over there on the top-notch positions. They're all Indians.
so? First of all, not all are Indians.
Majority of them.
Not even majority. I would say about maybe 10%. Not more than that. NASA is about 23 in
There's
terms
a
of
lot of
workforce.
major scientists over there. They are Indians for sure.
Yeah, and that's the reason there is why did they leave India, which contradicts your question. Why there were not many opportunities for them to stay back? Why did they choose that life if India was so good? So there you have to accept
Maybe
the
it
fact
was their way of giving it back to the country.
it is.
It is their way of giving it back to the
How are they
country
giving back to the country?
in terms of revenue.
How?
I mean, the foreign direct reserves is how.
But they are not NRIs anymore. They've all been. They are not American. They are now American citizens. So they have actually forgotten about India.
So maybe don't you think you should actually stay here? I mean, let's say if enough resource has already been drained to, different parts of the world, don't you think you should actually be the one who should be starting this, staying over here, maybe, telling people about that we do have exposure and we do have, such facilities maybe. I mean, we always talk about, the facilities we see over there in other countries, people following law and order, but when they come to India, they don't. I mean, I personally see a lot of them. When it comes to America, they're following all the law and order, doing everything a good citizen should do actually. Whereas when they come to India, they even, like shit they shit everywhere. So isn't it something like कि हमें लगता है हम बाहर जा रहे हैं तो हमें ऐसा करना है, but हम अपने ही घर में वो गंदगी फैलाते हैं.
True, I agree with you. And I will give you two different theories on this as far as how India has progressed and why we have a long way to go still. So the first one is, I think when I got married, I went to Aligarh where my in-laws are, and there was no electricity for on an average about 4 to 5 hours a day. And this is just 100 kilometers from Delhi in UP. I was in Aligarh day before yesterday, and there was no electricity for 5 hours. So where is the progress? The second instance is India talks about economic progress, but at the cost of social order. There is a great division in society today. India is not as tolerant as it used to be. Freedom of press has been curbed. It's a different India. It's not the India I grew up in, or the India I studied in, or the India I left behind. And I've come back to a very, very different India. So I believe that no economic progress can be at the cost of social order. How can smaller communities be dissatisfied, feel unsafe in this new India? So I don't really.
Is it because of similar reasons you don't wish to come back?
I don't,
Is religion one of the factors?
not so much religion, but I think culture. Religion would come later. Because I, being a Delhi wala, I never felt as if I belong to a certain religion. I always felt.
I mean, yes, you did mention about so many friends of yours,
Yeah.
them from different communities.
I felt as somebody who's part of a culture. But today it has become imperative to conform to a certain ideology, to a certain way of life. And whosoever is not doing so is being told to get in the line. Small example, we are being told what to wear, what to drink, what to eat, and even Hindi is being forced as some sort of a national language. Now, this is a great country of great diversity and has set hallmark of examples in terms of what it believes in, which is secularism and tolerance. And I see in the name of change, this is all being tossed around. Change is change, but not all change is good. But I have a firm belief still, and I will support your point because at the end of the day, I'm an Indian. I love my country. That, there's a very famous saying in management that when you try to change a lot of things, they remain the same. You only think you've changed something. I hope this change doesn't permanently happen and is just a passing phase in the life of this great country.
So let's say, given the opportunity, what sort of change you would like to bring in our country at present?
I think
Or maybe one thing which you really feel needs to change which is actually hampering our progress?
Okay. This is a very interesting question. I love it because I've had these discussions before. Uh, if you see the list of top 100 universities in the world, we don't have a single university. And that's so sad. Being a country that founded Nalanda, one of the earliest universities in the world.
Takshila.
And now we don't even have the top 100. Ek bhi nahi hai. I mean, why? We are a nation which has given so much in terms of culture and knowledge to the entire world. So if that one thing I want, my son wouldn't have gone to America. He would have studied in India. I want a great system of education in this country. I want a Harvard here, not literally a Harvard here, an Oxford, a Princeton, a Pennsylvania, a Cambridge. This is where the change will happen. There will be no brain drain. We won't be talking about Sundar Pichai going to America and becoming the CEO of Google. We will have these people right in India. And if that would have been the case, you would have been seeing a different Sheeraz talking here today.
I get it where it's coming from. Coming to a bit of lighter part. So, you love Shah Rukh Khan. I mean, let's say Shah Rukh Khan and Salman Khan. So, who do you pick?
I think I have this theory that Salman Khan is a superstar and Shah Rukh Khan is an entertainer.
Okay.
You know, Salman does anything on the screen, people love it. But Shah Rukh has to work a little harder to get there. I think Amir is an actor. So that's what completes the trilogy.
All right. So what, have you watched Pathan?
Yes.
So how did you feel? How did you do?
Pathan has done very well at the box office, but I didn't find it to be a very great movie. Being a Shah Rukh Khan fan, it's a very average film. But I think his coming back after a gap of almost 3 years, and I think his son's case that happened, and then there were some groups that protested against his movie. I think those contributed to the success. But I would like to see, I think Shah Rukh Khan in a much, much better movie than this.
But any day, I mean, Shah Rukh is ruling all over the world. People are like crazy about him, like anything.
Yeah, I'll tell you an incident from my Iraq trip. So we were driving from Karbala to Samarra, and we were stopped at a checkpost. And this is an Iraqi police officer. He sees my Indian passport and he says, "Who's the king of India?" And I said, "We don't have kingship in India, we have democracy." He said, "No, Shah Rukh Khan. Shah Rukh Khan is the king of India." And he opened his wallet and he had a photograph of Preeti Zinta and Shah Rukh and said, "Look, beat Zara.
Really?
Beat Zara."
Oh, really?
So yeah, that's the kind of popularity he has, even in the Middle East.
Oh, God. That's wonderful. That's actually huge. So you talked about Iraq, and I believe since you're an NRI, so you were in Iraq for some work, and you experienced something related to bomb blast and some incident happened related to terrorism.
So yeah, I went to Iraq on a business trip. It was a time when Iraq was not politically stable. Bombings were happening.
Terrorism was at its peak.
Yeah. And there were some objectives of my organization where I used to work. And it was not really imperative or important that I go there. But I took it upon myself that, I'm going to do it. My father, my mother, my wife, everybody threw a fit that, what are you doing to yourself? Anyway, I went there in spite of all the social pressures. And in Baghdad, where I was staying, it wasn't very close. It was about, say, 2.5 kilometers that we heard a thud while we were staying in the hotel. And I could see the smoke rising. And I felt, you can escape all you want. One day you might be there, right under it. And it was a very scary experience. I think I didn't sleep that night. Also, because
what was the last thought? Even though you said that you couldn't sleep that night, but you might have dozed off by any chance. So what was the last thought before you dozed off that night?
हम कतार में हैं. I'll tell you the exact words. I thought to myself, हम कतार में हैं. सिर्फ लाइन में लगे हैं. एक दिन हमारे साथ भी होगा. No matter हम कितना गए, हमें इससे फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. कुछ हमारे साथ थोड़ी ना हो रहा है. लेकिन मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि if we don't do anything about these issues, if we don't positively contribute to getting rid of what is happening, it's going to come to us. It's going to come to our house one day.
You're right. I was reading that, Ukraine-Russia war has entered the 540th day now. And we're just reading it on papers, watching it on television. But what if it actually strikes us someday? What will happen?
Yeah, imagine, Shweta, this was happening in Delhi. or if this was happening somewhere close to us, would we be talking about it on a talk show, or would we actually be campaigning or doing something about it? Because probably it would have come to our houses.
I mean, don't you think we have progressed when it comes to a war-like situation? We have kind of progressed from using weapons to cyber warfare to COVID. We all know was nothing but a bio warfare, as claimed by a lot of intellects. Maybe it was done on purpose or what, we cannot say that, but we have progressed, from weapons to bio warfare. On one hand, we're talking about being human, be kind. On the other hand, we're doing all of this. I mean, where do we see humanity progressing?
So my humble submission to that would be that we can go for alternative weaponry. We can do whatever we want in terms of arms and ammunitions. But are we changing our mindset? That is at the core of everything. If it is driven by greed, if it is driven by political success, if it is driven by making yourself a better leader because you will invade that country, or that you can cause harm to somebody because you are economically strong, your mindset hasn't changed. So I think the biggest thing we need to work on is mindset. And going back to the part that, this is all bio warfare, I think somebody, I don't know who has said it, but this is not my thought, I'm just repeating it, that in the next 20 or 30 years, the biggest enemy of humanity are these unknown viruses. Because what man is doing is, because of the expansion of the world population, it's going into areas which are forests. And when you cut open forests, it unleashes viruses you don't know. So COVID is, yes, it has happened. We're going to see a lot of them if we don't stop deforestation, if we don't stop greed, if we don't stop our ambitions.
How do we stop our ambitions? I mean, we talk about development all the times. We are, Noida, I mean, the place we are here in, it used to be a forest completely. Maybe, let's say, 30 years ago. And now you look around, it's all buildings, these towers, This is what we are talking about, development. How do we develop?
Okay, so case in point, let's take India, for example. We've all heard about urban migration.
Yeah.
And the whole theory of circular economy around it, of how people are migrating to cities like Delhi.
Correct.
Why do they need to migrate? If they had stayed back at their, why? But where is the progress here? Why are farmers, forced to come out and agitate? Why their demands are not being met? Why a farmer and his profession is not honorable and lucrative enough to stop him in his village and he living peacefully with his family? Do you think he likes it to come and sit under the Mulchand flyover and, beg? He's been driven to this situation by whom? By our political culture. So progress does not mean that if Noida has 10 people, tomorrow it has 100. Oh, we've grown. How many uninvited people have we called to Noida who would have been happier being, say, just 100 kilometers closer to Sikandrabad or closer to some other city or town or village?
But then we go to Dubai and see Burj Khalifa and all of these buildings and towers, and this is what we are trying to maybe, implicate. We are trying to copy them in terms of progress and development, isn't it?
I'm reminded of a joke. Mamata Banerjee very famously said after she won Bengal that she's going to turn Calcutta into London in 5 years.
Oh.
And I've been to London a couple of times. And I remember LK Advani replying to her saying that, has Mamata ever gone to London and seen London? So you are comparing an apple to a pear. Don't compare to Dubai. We are very, very far off from where they are and what they've achieved. We are very, very far off. Trust me, I've lived in Dubai. I've been to Dubai a lot. It's an amazing society that has progressed in a very systematic manner. 140 nationalities live there. There's no incidence of common disharmony there. There is no discrimination of color and creed. It's a very just society. What they have managed to achieve, whenever I go to Dubai and I look at Dubai and I think, wow, maybe my India will be like this one day. It is something in my mind that one day if India becomes like Dubai, my God, we would have achieved something. So right now, I think there is no sense of comparison with Dubai. So they may build 10 more Burj Khalifas. We have our problems to solve with poverty. Our citizens are not even getting, almost 30% of the population is not even getting 3 meals a day. Forget about Burj Khalifa. We're not even there. We're very far away.
But then, in terms of, in the name of development, we are, doing all this deforestation and all of that. And that's where, the viruses comes into the picture. We are entering their homes.
True. If the farmer gets to exercise his farming and earns enough, and he wants to have a bigger family, even if he wants to have a bigger family, there is enough place in the villages. He doesn't need to come to the cities. So if that entire system changes, where traditional earning methods are respected, are grown, then there won't be so much churning of population back and forth. Population control is something that India is not good at, because we traditionally have been having social norms about, remember, you used to get blessed to have more kids. That sense is definitely changing. You see nuclear families with one or two children. And you see China as an extreme example, where they banned the second child policy. I was in China 4 years ago, and I was with a supplier who told me, Sheeraz, because of this policy, we are having now a gap in skilled workforce.
Absolutely.
So even that drastic decision wasn't a great decision to take.
Correct.
Even India's way of living is at another level. So we don't need a Chinese solution. We probably need a solution which is much more educated. That's why I said this is where it starts. It starts with education. I was telling a joke to someone that when COVID started, my mom called me and said, Sheeraz, it's COVID, you have 2 boys, why don't you try for a girl?
Oh.
So my wife said, just because it's COVID, why should we have a girl child? She said, no, because you also 3 sisters, or 3 brothers, why not 3? I said, Mama, but if we all start thinking like this, how will we control population? The amount of resources that are available to me, for example, that I want to give to Ayan and Fazal, my 2 kids. If a third one comes, they'll be thinly spread. And I don't want that. So as educated people, as Indians, we all have to make our individual contributions also. When it comes to having kids, I want to have 6 kids. But I want to give gyan to the entire world that, I have 2 kids. So it starts from you. You set the example. Gyan dene se acha hai ki do something and prove it. And I'm sure this country is so amazing, it puts its mind to anything it achieves. When Rajiv Gandhi started the IT movement, and everyone said this is a joke, STD booths follow court. Look at us in IT today, we are leading.
Correct. You talked about education. Does that mean that our leaders, our current leaders, they're not educated enough to come up with the good policies?
The policies are skewed in the sense that if a policy comes out, it is catering or it is focused on benefiting a class of people.
Okay.
It is not aimed at benefiting masses. Let's not go into the details, but as a small hint, the farm laws.
Right.
Who was it aimed at? We all know it wasn't aimed at the farmer. So, if these kind of policies are allowed to become the governing principles of the day, we're going to have a very different India.
Before we get into too much of political nitty-gritty, so you love cricket. So there was this particular incident where it was India versus Bangladesh, I believe, and Mahendra Singh Dhoni के घर के आगे काफी protest हुआ था, because India lost the match. So is it justified, at the end of fans, to do to come up with such protests? One side they claim we love. एक तरफ तो हम भगवान बना देते हैं किसी को इंडिया में, और एक तरफ किसी को उतारने पर आते हैं तो प्रोटेस्ट कर रहे हैं, इतने riots create कर रहे हैं. What do you think?
So I think that since it's cricket, cricket is not a sport in India, it is a religion. And the amount of importance given to cricket, we have created probably the biggest brand of cricket in the world, which is IPL. And of course, as an Indian, I'm proud of it. I think that we treat cricketers as gods. And nobody wants to see a god fall. हम लोग कैसे कहते हैं कि खुदा उसे कहते हैं जिससे गलती का इम्कान ना हो. God cannot make a mistake. So everybody thinks that Mahendra Singh Dhoni is God and he cannot make a mistake.
But why is that mentality there in the first place? खुदा बनाना क्यों बनाना है खुदा जब देख
Because we are a nation who craves for heroes. We like heroes. Because we are a society which is very aspirational in nature. When you look at Shah Rukh Khan, you have a belief that a low middle class person can one day own Mannat in Bombay, and 10,000 people can line up outside his house just to see him. You may not like what he's doing, but you like that journey. You like the fact that a small boy from Ranchi, from Jharkhand, has gone on to become Mahendra Singh Dhoni. It gives you that belief that you can also be one of them one day.
We all look forward to
And
such
then when
stories.
such people fail,
Correct.
because they are humans, we start getting angry at them. And I mean, in the first instance, there is no point in making them gods, and in the second instance, there's no point in behaving like this with them. I mean, isn't it happening with Virat Kohli also when he didn't score a
Correct.
century for a very long period of time? That there were people from outside India like Nasir Hussain and Matthew Hidden when they heard that Virat Kohli is going to be dropped from the team. Are you crazy? This is the greatest cricketer of our generation. Just because he doesn't score runs for some matches. I mean, it's going on about Rohit Sharma these days. But these are legends of the game. Rohit Sharma has scored, I think, 3 200s in the 1 days.
What do you think of betting? Is it real?
I think betting should be legalized. I've been to England and I've seen English Premier League, and I've seen that government earns taxation out of doing this, and there is a limit. So you can't just spend your entire money. And since you are educated, you know exactly how much to bet. IPL is, there is betting happening. Some of it is legalized or disguised in the form of these online games that have come up. And if you see the pool, IPL cricketer is the most sought after profession in India. खेलोगे कूदोगे बनोगे नवाब बनोगे खराब आज तो नवाब
पढ़ोगे
even IIT or IIM, the starting salaries of professionals is not so high if you are an IPL cricketer today.
No, things have changed. I mean, parents these days, they are sending their kids to, whatever hobby you have or whatever sports you want to pursue. Things have changed, of course, over the period of, last couple of years. But what about, we hear about these matches being fixed, especially in IPL. So have you ever heard of anything like that? Any such incident where...
Yeah, it's very disturbing. It completely, makes
because somehow your belief,
go away from the sport.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've heard about it. Yes, it's very unfortunate. But I hope so that these things don't happen, because we love cricket. We just want to see a good match. And most of the times in IPL, you're not even siding with the team. You're siding more with the sport, because most of them are Indians who are playing. And, as somebody who's lived in Saudi for so many years, it's a matter of great pride and honor. And whenever I travel abroad, we always have IPL to throw at people. That look what we have created.
Correct.
The Indians put our mind to something sincerely. And they acknowledge it. It's the second biggest sporting league in the world now, after I think in NBA or NFL. Second biggest sporting league. Second richest sporting league. So I think this is what we Indians are if we put our mind to anything.
True. That's very true. What about the jersey these days? If you look at it, I mean, Dream 11, I believe, is sponsoring the entire thing. And if you look at the jersey carefully, Dream 11 is like bold and bigger, like on the chest over here. And India, यहाँ पे कहीं छोटा सा India लिखा हुआ है. What do you think? I mean, is branding that important? Is it above nation? I mean,
it has. It sounds like that, we are a country which is in a commercial trap where money has taken precedence over nation. And, I don't want to name him, but certain cricketers are fit for IPL and they are unfit to play for the country. In fact, I know of some boys I've met in Delhi. क्या करना है बड़े होके IPL खेलना है. How about playing for India? होगा तो होगा, नहीं होगा तो नहीं होगा, but IPL तो खेलेंगे. So it seems IPL has overtaken the craze to play for the nation. Not because there is great pride in playing for IPL. It's greater pride playing for India because there's money. There is money. And this is a very wrong orientation. I think country comes first before everything.
So is it media which is supposed to be blamed?
Media is getting paid to say this. I mean, the TV channels get their advertising by promoting IPL. Will the government of India pay so much to promote India as a nation versus, these kind of bodies? So I think this has to come from within. You have to be proud to be a citizen of this country, and then everything will follow from it.
I think this is an emotion which nobody can, instill it in you. I mean, everybody has their own opinions. You have yours, I have mine. Media is doing their job. I don't know whether they're right or wrong. But then this particular emotion of, feeling it for your country, it comes from within, I guess. You just cannot, impose or force somebody to feel it for your country.
You said it very well. In fact, let me ask you something. Since I also have a right to ask one question.
Absolutely.
Are you falling in love in life?
Yes.
So, if you are in love with someone and that person hurts you back, you have the ability as a human being to hate him or her the same way you loved him. It's a very fascinating human emotion. So, if the country you love and you're so crazy about has done something to hurt you so badly, did you suddenly feel, I don't want to be part of this?
But then don't you believe in, forgiveness? It is the biggest virtue one can ever do in life.
The problem with forgiveness is that if it's not looked at emotionally,
Gandhiji said, an eye for an eye will make the whole world blind.
Right, but Gandhi was killed by an Indian at the end of the day, and for the fact that he believed in non-violence. So we at some level, did we really understand Gandhi and what his great life was all about? Today there are open protests against him. I mean, I am a double master's. I'm educated. I've worked out. I don't think I have even the slightest qualification to talk about a man of Gandhi's caliber. So Gandhi is my role model in life. Also, he's somebody whose idols I've grown up with, and I don't think 99% of the people who talk in India and insult Gandhi are even qualified to talk about Gandhi. So,
well, that was very, very interesting conversation. That does bring me to one of a very important question. I mean, you have been to various countries and you talked about how hospitable, people are around the world. Even you mentioned, I believe, one of the incidents where Pakistani family, you're friends with, or maybe, even your tenure in Iraq, you find people, you saw that they were very hospitable. So is it something very different from what media projects or what media throws towards us? I mean, this entire hatred and all of this, ki ye ho raha hai, wo ho raha hai. But in reality, this is something very different. The common man is very engaged or very genuine or is very hospitable towards, maybe Indians and vice versa. Indians are very hospitable towards Pakistan.
Yeah, I think when I went to Pakistan, I've been to Pakistan more than once. The kind of hospitality I got there from the Pakistanis, A, it was completely unexpected. B, it was overwhelming.
Why was it unexpected?
Because of what I had seen in the media. So that answers pretty much your question.
Absolutely.
This is what the media creates. In fact, I'll tell you a very specific incident where I went to Karachi to buy rabdi because it's very famous there. And that person figured out during the conversation that I belong to Delhi. So he got up from his chair. He was the owner, and he asked me to come in. And below his shop was written Jagat Seth. He said this shop belongs to Mr. Jagat Seth. He migrated to India during partition. ये उन्हीं की दुकान है, अब तो सिर्फ चला रहे हैं. तो and he gave me the rabdi free. It was like 8-10 kgs. So the amount of love Pakistanis have for us, and vice versa. So people to people contact within the two countries is never really broken down. What is shown in the media has a political overtone to it, and that is very different. When I went to Iraq, I was at the shrine of Imam Hussein, and I was buying these rosary beads for my mom, and he quoted a price for a dozen.
Oh.
And I bought a dozen, but when I counted, it was 11.
Yes.
When he rechecked with me and it was actually 11, he fell on my feet. He said, I'm so sorry, please don't go out and tell this to anyone. We don't do this here. It's just a mistake. And then he made sure he followed me to the hotel, and he made sure he found out my room number. He bought dinner for me in the evening, and he said, I want you to come and meet my family. I'm very sorry for what I've done. That's A. B, my brother-in-law is buried in Najaf, and the taxi driver who took me there asked me on the way why I'm going there. And I said, my brother-in-law died here, so I've never come here. I've come to see him. He didn't charge me any money for the taxi.
Oh my God.
So,
do we really find such people?
In Iraq, in spite of the fact that they've had a decade war with Iran, And then from 2003, when Saddam was overthrown, they've been living in such political unstable conditions. There is poverty, but there is great respect for human values. They haven't forgotten their values. And this is something I noticed even when I traveled in Jordan. Although Iraq would be probably more in terms of spread, but even in Jordan, I went to Dead Sea. I was there as a tourist. This is a country which has a lot of ego and pride about being Arabs, and they treat Asians like us brown-skinned people with a certain air of, racial discrimination. This country has completely changed because Jordan needs tourism today. So I would say that is why Jordan would be, and there's a change because of a reason. But Iraq, there is no reason. There is only negativity that has been around in the society because of the wars. So yeah, very impressed with Iraqi people and would love to go back there. And my wife hasn't gone. Her brother is buried there. So I have promised her one day I'll take her.
Ever encountered any such hospitable incident in India?
In India? Oh yes, many. Grown around them. And I think especially in railway journeys, on platforms, on bus stations. Uh, I think it's entirely my fault that whenever I come to India, I have very little time, so it's always airports. But I am planning to do the Bharat Brahman very soon, and I've been at it because I want to write more, and for that I want to see the real India.
Absolutely. What we read and hear is very different from when we actually get into it. जब तक हम खुद कि वो real time India, not traveling in buses, not traveling in planes and cars, but maybe exploring their local shastras, talking to local people over there would actually give us what real India looks like, and that was very interesting.
I'll tell you something which is very subconscious in my mind, and it became conscious when I came back to Saudi for my Iraq trip. On the flight, I realized why was I so impressed with Iraq and the Iraqi people. Not because of they were Muslims or not because it's a war-torn country and they've done so well. You know what? I saw a country that's like my country.
Sure.
This is how people are in my country. And I think that is something I took some time to realize, that I probably met people of a nation that's like me. That's how we Indians are. That's how much hospitable we are when people come to us.
I am so glad to hear this. And that brings me to my last question. Who is Sheeraz Shah? I mean, you're a marketing strategist, as we know. You're an NRI. You've become a writer. You're in progress of becoming an author very soon. You're a father. You're a son. But who is Sheeraz Shah? Actually, who is Sheeraz?
I think if we take the position that life is a journey and not a destination, so I would say I'm still in transit. I haven't reached my destination. Whatever beautiful things life is throwing at me, I'm accepting them. And I've always been fascinated by new experiences. That's why I've been to new locations. I've done new things. And I don't know whether I'm going to stop at just being a writer or I'll go further. But I'm someone who doesn't like continuity for a very long time. So, which is very contradictory to what I'm saying because I've been in a job for 18 years at the same company.
Yes.
But I think that realization kicked in very late, that are you going to be this person for the rest of your life? No, there is something greater than what you've achieved. And the day you think that you cannot achieve something, stop there and rest. But put your hands into something that is new, that is exciting, that makes you a better person. So I am on that journey still. I don't know where I'll end. So who is Sheeraz Shah? Probably a combination of all these people. But if I was to rate in order of ranking just for the sake of purpose, I would say that one of the greatest compliments I got in my life is from my mother, who said that you're a very responsible son. I wish every mother has a son like you. So I think I'll probably I'll put that as first. I think my mom, I'm a son. That's where it starts. And then probably go to, I think, my wife, because she's been probably the greatest inspiration of my life in terms of keeping me focused. So, yes, women, both women at the center stage of my life, my success, my failures, everything these two women are responsible for. And this book is also because of my wife. She's the one who pushed me to write this book. Where I'll go from here, अब खुदा जाने, I know it, time will tell.
This actually talks what sort of man you are. I mean, very, very beautiful. And we wish you all the luck, all the success. May the forces of universe be with you. And thank you so much for doing this with us.
Thank you, Shweta.
Thank you. Thank you so much.